Hi, this is Patty Hodge at Dr. Nurses Rock. And again, you'll see my friend here today, Amy Frost. Welcome back, Amy.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
Excited. I'm all about, anything you're doing because you're doing great stuff.
I just love you. And I think that you were such an integral part of what we're going to talk about today that I'm so glad we came back together to do this. So let's tell folks what we're about today. In April of this year, uh,
Starting April Fools.
starting, correct. I did something to honor the 10th anniversary of the passing of a loved one. And it turned out to be 30 days of grief-related topics, and then even more after April was finished. We had a couple more. And I think there'll be more in the future because this is such a broad topic. And people, I believe, and you can chime in about this, I believe people can't name or haven't named what's actually going on with them as grief.
Yeah.
And if we could reframe so much of the struggle that people are going through in terms of grief, then they have a handle. They have some way to understand that this is a process, that it has pieces that they might recognize in themselves and in other people. It has a way to be dealt with. And so that's really what Dr. Nurses Rock has been about, is helping people uh, to take care of themselves and hopefully other people as well. So grief itself has lots of different names.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It comes in many ways. And my understanding, the way that I've come to understand grief, is every traumatic event that we experience, and everything now is about trauma-informed care and all of that. Every traumatic experience has some loss attached to it. If we notice it and recognize it as loss, and every loss has some kind of grief attached to it. And so if we learn to recognize it and address it, we help ourselves.
May I take it another step?
Yes.
So for me, I lost my husband many years ago, and I've had very significant losses in my life. And for me, I do a lot of work with supporting people in with change of all kinds, especially in the workplace. And we talk about trauma and grief. I think it's change, and
Yes.
trauma makes it more intense. But a good friend of mine, an adopted daughter of mine, is starting med school on Monday. And we talked, I'm mentoring her through that, very honored to do that. And we had a really great talk yesterday about, yay, I'm starting school and this is going to be great. And then, oh crap, I don't know anybody. It's a whole new thing, and the grief, she worked at the vet center for 5 years, and it was really a family and loved it. And so, it's a natural progression. You go from that thing to the next thing. But there, we talked about it. It's okay to have grief. And it doesn't have to be, I hate to say big loss because I don't want to quantify anything. It is what
Sure.
it is. You're experiencing what you're experiencing. I think for me, what I'm loving about what I'm moving into, what I see you moving into, and us moving in together is, how do we take this experience? And grief, I think, is it helps people to get, it's okay to have a stop for a moment,
Yes.
and look at this. And for me, it's about, how do I help myself and others that I support in acknowledging that as real time as possible, have tools to be with it, and then be able to move on as gracefully as possible. Not that you move on, that sometimes you just don't move on, but you go forward, maybe. I don't
Well, you
know.
live with it in some way.
Live with it.
You
Thank
live
you. I
with it.
love that. Live with it.
Yeah. And the crucial thing about this understanding trauma and change, I mean, as you're saying, positive things also have some sense of loss attached to them. A
That
lot.
you identify as positive, right?
Yes,
It's like, so
yes,
it's like, for me at this point in my life, it's like I'm trying not to make anything positive or negative.
yes. Well, again, we need to check our language. And so we may be altering that as we go along because we're learning together and the world learns too. And then we get input from other people. And that's part of this is this particular video, we'll be reviewing those 30 days of grief as quickly as possible. We don't want this to be a 2-hour video, but we do want people to know that the topics were broad and that there are still maybe hundreds more topics that could be addressed. And that the people that were so gracious with their time and their expertise just came out of the ether to come and be part of this. And that was such a miracle for me to do this thing, to honor my loved one, to honor my family's grief, and to honor other people's grief. And so the reason that Amy is like number one here, Amy watched every one of these videos.
And I watched them real time.
Yes, she did.
And I wasn't, I hate to say warned, but I had right. I wasn't sure what I was watching each day. And let me go to that for a minute. So I want to y'all listening, I made that commitment that I would listen to everyone as they were posted. I would be in my own experience and I would comment. And it was I'd say earth-shattering, or it was certainly life-changing. I know a lot about grief, and I've certainly had lots of grief, like all of us, in many different ways. But I had a different understanding of grief after doing that and for myself. So what I recommend when you're listening, whatever you're listening, that's the good news. This is, it will be there for you.
Yes.
You don't have to do it like I did, but you don't have to look every day and do one, and we would love to have you do, look. So what I recommend, how about this, is that you look at the topics, listen to Patty's beginning one for sure, and the first one, and then kind of look around, and then maybe once a week, say, oh yeah, I want to go look at that one, or maybe more if you feel called. I would even go so far as what I'm doing now is I'm looking at, oh, that person would really get something out of that one. And I'm
Yes,
sending it to them. And what if we had, like a book club? We could have a podcast club. I don't know. Do people do that?
they
You know?
do. They do. And let's talk more about that because that could be a private group that people that have an interest, that we're not putting it out for the general public, but for people who really want to do some work about this, if
Oh,
that's
and one other thing, please, if you're watching one of those and you realize you need some support, please get it.
yes. And again, I said this in the very first video that I ever posted. I am a nurse, but I'm not your nurse. And Amy is a therapist, really, in some ways, and she's not your therapist. So we need to be clear about that. We're not offering a service in that regard. We're offering information, and some of it is entertaining, and some of it is educational, and in the broad sense, we're trying to reach as many people as possible. And in that sense, we would like you to subscribe if you haven't, and share if you haven't. So, so much for the commercials here today. Let's jump in a little bit here. What I hope to do is maybe take this a week at a time and say a little bit about each video and some of what you experienced, and I'll chime in as well. I haven't tried this before, so let's see if I can share how people can find this.
Oh, good.
It started out with a plea here, and we'll go to right here up to day 7. So that's all 7 videos and the thumbnail pictures of each one. So you will recognize that. And it started with, I wasn't ready, which was my way of introducing this. It was just shorter video. And what I was saying here was this whole, my whole event here, this very consequential moment in life was the passing of my daughter-in-law, which left 2 children with their dad, my son, and his canine. He was a canine officer in the police department here. And I had to leave everything behind, my house, my daughter, my friends, my job, and I was not in a good mental state. So here, this video is very brief, but I read here a story that I had published about that experience. So if people are interested in that, I urge you to just listen to those 12 minutes and see if you recognize any of the symptoms of what I was experiencing as grief at the time. So I don't know where we want to go from there. The next video was Storytellers, who are a group of my friends. And we talked about the first, worst, and last loss. And if we can frame many things in life as the first time this happened, if it's some kind of a difficult thing, a trauma, what was the first time that it happened? And then work from there. And now the worst time and the last time, that's a frame. And it helped us to understand where the biggest consequential losses were and how we've dealt with them over time. And the third video here is 30 years after the loss of a spouse. Roy is a friend of mine, and his spouse was my best friend from childhood. And he had two children, young children, when Diane passed. And he was so open in this video. He talked about all the things that a man has to face, basically, in trying to raise children by himself. He also had, dealings with school and money, how to handle those issues, and how to handle the extended family who were close by, and of course, dealing with their own sense of loss about this dear friend of ours and his wife. So these are just very quick statements, overviews of how I came to enter into this project.
Well, and for me, his talk was really beautiful, and how vulnerable and open he was, and having lost a spouse myself. One of the things that was really, I brought up my own experience, and I got to look at that, and where am I at with that now, and from a much different perspective than different points in my life. And one of the things that was most profound was learning to accept help from the village,
Yeah, yeah.
and how
He,
important that is.
Roy really emphasized how he couldn't have done what he did, which he did very successfully. These two children are amazing adults. And I'm very pleased to say that I was part of that community that helped raise those kids, be present to them and be present at holidays and be present for other things that they just wanted to share at the time. And so it's an amazing thing. It's a blessed thing. I can't even come up with all the words that I need to say what it is to walk with someone while you're grieving, while they're grieving, and how to move forward, because we are going to grieve. It's going to happen to all of
And,
us.
you're right. You either do it consciously or you do it unconsciously.
Yeah. Or you
Yeah,
do it openly or quietly, and that
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah. It's
that
like, and
takes
again, I think the most important thing that for me with what this whole series is about is there isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way.
correct. So if we go back to that particular little share here, you'll see the next person up is Sherry Schachter. Dr. Sherry is she really was an expert in grief, and I asked her to come and talk about how men grieve on the tails of listening to Roy's story, because she runs a group for a national organization for men and is on the board and does all kinds of amazing things. And the two things she talked about were her colleagues came up with two different ways that people grieve in categories. Both basically, one is an intuitive way, which many people will say is the way the feminine grieves. Your inside matches your outside. You're slobbering, you're crying, you're speaking about this loss, you're processing it out loud, you're doing, and the other is instrumental. And this is not necessarily a sex difference, but it seems to show up in a way that people identify it as a difference in the way that men and women grieve. So an instrumental way of grieving. Sherry talked about a man who lost his daughter in a car accident. And right after the funeral, he went to the site of the accident, which was a neighbor's yard, And he started to fix the fence. He went and bought materials and started to mend the fence that got broken in this accident. And of course, the owner came out and said, "Listen, you don't have to do that." And he said, "Well, yeah, I do."
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that really is the way. It's often how we see men experience their grief is to be very practical, very out there doing these things. And you may never see a tear.
Right. Right.
Right. So I thought that was really an important uh, message there. And there's so many gems in this little video. If you'd like to comment at all about what Sherry had to say, let me know. Um,
uh, for me, the big thing was the male or female, just being really aware of the different styles
yeah,
that people have and how unique we are in processing grief, but also we process different kinds of grief differently.
correct.
Right. And so just really being curious and unconditionally loving as we allow people, right? I hate to say allow, but be present with them. Not really, we're not allowing anything. We're being present. And we're going to dive into this a little bit, kind of
Sure.
from uh, the loss of the spouse. I want to come back to that a little bit, not just about the spouse, but again, I've done a lot of my own processing. As a matter of fact, next week I run a woman group at a vet center. And next week, because of everything that we've talked about, I'm doing the process I'm going to talk to them with is about grief and forgiveness.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, and part of the acknowledging the grief and the forgiveness, but also this kind of came up a little bit with letting the village help you. I'm going to throw it at let the village help you in maybe a little different way than you might have thought about. Like my uncle on my dad's side died of brain tumor, and when my cousin was 16, and my dad kind of stepped in as a surrogate father for her. In
Yes.
fact, she walked me down the aisle to my husband Ross, in my dad's stead, as a matter of fact. And so that kind of shifting who is our family, right?
Exactly
How do
right.
we get what we need in new ways? Adopted families, like I have the grief of I always thought I'd have children. And when my husband died, I was in prime, let's have babies mode, right? And so that did not happen. And so the grief of dealing with that. I have four sisters that all had two kids, and and then really it's like, oh, who am I without being a mother? Who am
Yes.
I? And so I have a lot of adopted children. And they had breakfast with one this morning, and they
Yes.
met with one yesterday, and that's there because that need for me didn't pass with that not happening biologically for me.
Yes. Yes. I haven't told this story publicly before, I don't believe, but my mother was not a well woman, and I loved her to death the way that we love our parents and the way that we love people that are important to us. But I often did not feel like I was getting the emotional support or even the emotional awareness in growing up. And so when I was going through a terrible divorce and I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and I went to work, believe it or not, in
Of course you did. It's like that's what we do.
I went
Hello.
I went to work actually in a nursing home, which was for religious women. So I worked for
Mm,
nuns, basically. They were the
wow.
ones that taught me through high school. And I was a nurse supervisor in this position. And I say that I had 200 mothers
Oh my God,
because
why do I
all
listen to
these, my grandmother helped raise me. So I have I have such a wonderful, warm feeling towards these amazing women in life. But we do make a tribe. We make a tribe, and
And
sometimes
if
the
you
tribe,
haven't, we want to support you in
that's
doing that.
like,
Please.
please, that's it. Come find the people that want to support you and want to
And
uplift
lift
you
you. That's right.
and to be there for you as you experience life and help you navigate what's going on in your own self and around you. So, grief, back to the topics here, if we can. In this first week, the next video was rituals and how a community honored a hero. I just want people to see these thumbnails so they'll recognize this when they come back. So, I'll do a brief share here again, if you'll bear with me. because I know it kind of takes away from Amy's beautiful face if I cover it with this here. But so Rituals in Grief has this little candle here. Um, and the hero in this story was my father. So
Mhm.
again, in this particular video, I did read a story that I had published on medium.com about how he was honored in the community as an ambulance driver, first responder. And the rituals part was, again, this was put together to help the average person. This is not, I'm not pretending to be like your religious guru or anything like that, but it's things like, lighting a candle in honor of your loved one, or putting a little space together that is just a little memory space, a picture and something that reminds you of them. On my table right here, I have some little figurines, and I have a little bell, and I have some rocks, and I have a picture. And I mean, all these things don't mean anything to anyone but me.
Well, and that, that's it. I don't know if I shared this story along the way, but one of my favorite things that I did, ritual, and I had a memorial for my husband in the military. A lot of times what they'll do is they have the boots and the rifle and the helmet. So at his memorial, we had that up front. He was a candy freak. He loved candy. I am the only one who knew this. I filled his boots with candy.
Oh,
So
how sweet is that?
so while I was there and it was intense and all that, every once in a while I think of him and the candy and
Yes.
his joy eating candy and what he'd be laughing, I'm sure, saying, "Oh boy, that was a good one. You pulled that off on everybody." So, so that honored him, but it also helped me to get through that really tough day.
Yeah. And, let's me step back a little bit here. Grief is not just about death. Death is a big one
The
as
one
far
that
as
we may pay attention to and ignore all the others.
yeah, exactly that. And the one that society sort of says, oh, it's okay that you have this time to grieve. We know, somebody died. But then there are, again, other losses that we have, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. But this in particular, this first week really did talk about death a whole lot, and the role of grief in that piece. So, so we went from rituals to Dr. Nick, whose name I still have trouble pronouncing.
I like Dr. Nick. Let's just stay with that. That works for me.
He was
It was
just
a fascinating conversation,
he
I
was
thought.
wonderful. He talked about grief and the brain.
Hmm.
And I, I just love how warm he is. He is in Greece. And for me, that was a huge experience. Again, I'll share the thumbnail so people can recognize this. We'll just do this one really quick so we can come back to, again, Amy's lovely face here. But we'll do this. This is Dr. Grief. Dr. Grief. Dr. Nick is right here. Nick Statharakos. And he is a forensic psychiatrist. So we were talking about the fingerprint of grief on the brain. Is it one of the phrases that he used? And he was talking about the chemicals that happen inside of our bodies when we're grieving, what happens inside of the brain, and why do we get grief brain and grief fog? And why do we slow down? And all those, why do we have this constant craving for this person or this thing that we've lost? So that was very well worth 25 minutes of your time, I would believe.
Well, and a couple of things from that for me, he talked about the broken heart syndrome.
Yes, and that was important. And that's not the
Very
brain.
important. Man, and I've seen that play out many times with people that I'm supporting and care about.
Yes,
And so I think if you don't know about that, that's a great thing to know. But one of the things that he said, I love to quote him, he said, "Listen to see what they are facing with their eyes, not yours."
correct. He's a therapist, really, right? Get into the shoes of that person. And that
I love to
whole
listen to see, which is like, isn't that interesting? Listen to see. Like,
uh
okay.
that may be a language thing that we need
Well,
to
but I think
learn,
it's,
right?
again, we were bringing in, for me,
Yeah,
let me go with like, we're bringing in all the senses,
exactly that.
you know?
what a sweet man and what a
Oh my
wonderful
goodness, yes.
thing to be
Just
part of
it
this.
really is. Well, they're all worth it in different ways.
Yes.
So whatever, again, it's just like, we want to, just try any one of them. It really doesn't matter,
Yes.
and then once you get in, it's like, we really want to give you the opportunity to look at grief from lots of different
Oh,
perspectives.
please, every way that you can, and then share it. Like, take the time to put something in the comments section because what you're
Well,
thinking and feeling, somebody else is thinking and feeling or needs to know.
absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear your ritual stories.
Oh, you want to go back to, yeah, let's
Well,
put
no,
that
I'm
in
just saying,
there.
but in general, just,
Yeah.
each one is like, okay, like I put the candy in his boots.
Yeah, let's hear it.
What else could you, what, and yeah, I know you've done things maybe you've never shared with anybody. We'd love to hear that.
Put it in the comments because somebody may think they're a little crazy,
And they
you
may
know,
be,
and
and
they
that's
might be.
okay.
Well,
I haven't publicly shared this, so okay, somebody thinks that's nuts. Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really talk about this either. I had to create a ritual when my dog died, and we'll go back here and another video talks about animal grief, but yeah, there are things that we do when we're experiencing a loss and it's really okay. If you're not hurting somebody else and you're not hurting yourself, do what you need to do as far as a ritual to help yourself heal. And we'll support that. And there are things that you can be doing that are dangerous. We don't want you
Well,
to
that's
be
exactly right. So,
right.
again, and that's why it's good to have, be sharing with others because we kind of lose perspective if
Yeah,
we don't have the voice of reason from people we trust.
right. We're not talking about, and another video we'll talk about that when further, but how some people do cope that's really ineffective and probably not healthy. But for Dr. Nick and let's go back to the broken heart for just 1 second,
Hmm.
is I would worry about patients who had had a severe loss because, you know, um, people do die. People do die from having an intense loss that they do not have support about. Either it's a traumatic loss or something that they just
Or even
can't.
win the lottery.
Do you think?
Oh, I've heard that. I've heard, they got so excited it blew out their system.
Well, I'm sorry to laugh because I really want to win the lottery, but I
Yeah,
don't
well, I
want
get it.
to.
Get right. So we'll work on that. You win the lottery, and you call me, and we'll work through it.
And yes, well, then we'll pull in the tribe that we know is not going to worry so much about how much money you've won, but how much you take care of yourself, basically. So we have one more person in that first week, or I think that was the top seven were.
Number 7. Woo!
Number 7 was Dr. Nick. So number 8 was Kristin Miller, who is a friend of yours,
Well,
as
I,
far as
well, I
I
have
know. You
number
know
7
each
is
other.
Kristen, but that's okay. So, so just
Okay.
yes, she and I are very close friends.
Okay.
We worked with the energy psychology group.
Right.
Is it? Is it
Yes.
number 7?
Number 8. Chris,
Number 8. Okay.
number
All
8.
right.
So on
So
the
number
second
8.
week.
Well, we blew through a week already. All right. So Kristen and I have worked with emotional first aid in many different arenas,
Yes.
and she's lovely and she really talks about how to be present with yourself in grief in a gentle way.
Yes. Kristen, all throughout this video, was actually demonstrating some techniques to help you when you're in intense grief. And I've shared this video with another friend who had a very significant loss and who found it really helpful. Kristen also introduced the topic of the app that people can use to help
Yes,
themselves.
Peaceful Heart Network, yeah,
That's a free app, and
a
it
free
brings you
app.
through how to do tapping, which is an EFT technique, emotional freedoms technique, to help bring down intense feelings. She also talked about heart math
Love
and
HeartMath.
and
HeartMath.org.
havening, which was it's almost a way of how would you describe havening?
It's getting back to center.
Yes.
So how I like to describe emotional fertility in general is it isn't about healing. It may, but that's not what it's about. It's about when your brain's going like this because whatever happened, that there's lots of ways to do it. There's like that. There's 4-7-8, which is my favorite. Heart
Yes.
math is heart breath, where you really focus on your breath. and you imagine something that brings you great peace and joy, and you breathe it in and you breathe out what isn't that. So you're like, okay, I can make the next decision.
That's perfect. And my colleagues may or may not remember this because I've been out of the clinic now for over 10 years, but they would often see me taking in a deep breath and releasing it as I was walking through corridors from one patient to the next.
Yep.
And so, or I walk into the office and I would and just blow that energy just out, and not in my system, and being able to say, okay, next, who's next in line? What do you need? Because when we're filled with some big emotion, it's very difficult to have the thought processes in line. So it's not to say big thoughts and big emotions are against one another. They function to help us. But if we need to be in a space where we need to think clearly, we need to put the
And
emotions,
quickly.
yeah, we need to put the emotions in check for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And not to, it's not saying, oh, putting them aside, it's actually dealing with them. We're actually dealing with them by doing this energy work.
Well, Hardwired for Happiness. He talks about, I love this analogy, that you've got this screaming kid going on, and you love them and all that, and you have them in a car seat in the back seat, and in the front seat you're focused.
That's great.
The kid is still screaming in the back, and
Yeah.
but you got him in a car seat. It's protected.
Well, I mean, that's reminiscent of some other commentary later on here. Dr. Lynn Karjala talks about your inner 4-year-old. So we're getting there. This is week 2. So I would say to people, just for some practical stuff, Kristin it's a wonderful video. And again, do share it with somebody that might need these techniques, who might
And
need
you can
that.
use it every day for everything. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be about grief,
Right.
but it certainly helps you to be present.
And Kristin did share her own grief. She talked
Yeah.
about the loss of her daughter and how
Yeah.
significant that was. So let's share again this screen, and I'll show people what's coming up for the next several people. And you can find this at Dr. Nurses Rock. So this is Dr. Bob Baugher comes next. And Dr. Bob was
Love
here.
him.
He was here a couple of times because he is such a great speaker, very warm and funny. And I asked him to talk about this thing called proxy grief.
I love that.
What was your takeaway from Dr. Bob?
Well, the grief that we take on when others are suffering.
Yes. And caregivers
Oh my gosh.
often do that, right?
Community servers. We did it. We did
Community
a
service.
specific one on that. But I'm taking care of everybody. I'm taking care of everybody. But part of when you're doing that, certainly it's, for me, this is me speaking, a lot of people I know who are, people who are servers and carers, it's, like, please let it happen to me, not them. And when it happens to them, it takes on a whole nother level of, grief for me personally. Right. And then how do I do what I'm here to do and honor them, but honor me at the same time?
Yeah. So important. So important. So as I am familiar with proxy grief, living in a household with people who are grieving, and people who I loved, and people who I didn't want to see in pain. And it is a very real thing. It's something that you need to take care of yourself. And we're trying to, in this series, also explain not only what grief is, but how to take care of yourself and help other people who may be going through this.
So I want to share in proxy grief, one of the things that he shared that I really loved. He talked about worrying effectively.
Yes, wasn't that
It
wonderful?
was wonderful. And he said, write down all your worries, speak them out, or tell them to somebody else.
Right.
Find a worry place, and the worst worry and the worst place to worry is in bed. So
Right.
don't go there. But find a place where it's designating worry zone and go do that.
That's perfect advice. And how many of us are, we're busy all day long. We're doing what we have to do, getting through life. And where does the worry start to show up is when we try to rest. So
3 a.m. for me.
very practical tools. find a place where you need to worry. So if you're not being, I find that if I wasn't able to sleep, I would have to get up. I would have to get up and go sit someplace and help myself work this through. So
When I literally have a prayer chair, not in my office. It's I have to get up and I have to go there. And it's programmed for me to release and pray. So when I get my butt in that chair, I know that's what I'm there to do. And my
yes.
body goes, okay, that's what we're here to do.
Well, some people go to a park, they have a special bench, or they go to a church and they sit in a pew and they do
Love
something,
that.
right? So whatever it is that works for you, we're just saying do it. Don't forget to do it. Remember to take care of yourself as you're doing
Well,
life.
and one of my favorite tricks that I've supported a lot of people in the hospital and my husband too very serious times in 2026 and in 2024. And what I learned in that process was I get him settled. He's, and you have all those noises and those smells and everybody worried and I immediately go find the chapel in the hospital
Perfect.
because it's quiet,
Yes.
and it's peaceful and I'm not smelling anything. I'm not right. So yeah, I'm not hearing all the, even if I go for a minute or two. And
Yeah.
of course, get a cup of coffee, but
If the chapel doesn't allow coffee, do the
well, then I
coffee
yeah,
before
get
or
it
after.
before or after.
So um, let's move on just a little bit here. I think people have an idea of where to find this now. I'm just going to quickly go through maybe the next few days, and I will share that screen briefly so people can find that. And we'll look at the next several days here are very quickly so you can see these thumbnails. This is Hospice Pioneer, Liz Wolczko, Dr. Lynn Karjala, Prolonged Grief. Amy Frost came back and talked about grief on the job, grief and addiction. And 14 second week here is Reflections on Necessary Losses with Dr. Cindy Grapenthin. And day number 10, Liz Wolczko, I hope I pronounced your name right, Liz, if you're watching. Liz talked about how she turned her grief into helping others. Basically, that's what we caregivers do. Right?
That's where not a lot of nonprofits get started.
That's exactly how nonprofits get started. We want to
Make
help
something meaningful out of what happened.
out of, yeah. So she talks about how her relationship with the brother who she was not close to, who died, how she learned more about him as time went by after his passing, and this neighbor who had cancer and small children and who left her research with Liz's mother on how to do hospice at home. Now, hospice was not something that existed here in this country when Liz got this information. This woman did her own research. She knew she was dying. She knew she had small children. She didn't want to go into a hospital in her last days. And so Liz and her mother turned that information into the first hospice in the United States.
Amazing.
It's such a dramatic thing.
Well, and for me, let's put the grief aside for a minute. I'm all about, I believe we all come here with a calling,
Yes.
and different things ping it. And what a great example of following your calling and not giving up.
Very tenacious woman. And the story is very powerful. And I hope you'll take just, how long was that video? 27 minutes?
Well, that's the thing. None
26?
of them are, longer than 30 minutes or much longer than 30 minutes. And, you can do it in bits and pieces, but
Correct.
it's a gift I gave myself every day for 30 days.
And I'm so grateful that you did, because it showed me that this can be helpful,
Oh my
what I'm
goodness.
trying to do. And, sometimes we feel like we're yelling out into the void, help, help, and so I really, however many people view this, let's hope that they find what the information that really helps them the most. And that's what this is for, to help us move forward and help us help
Well,
others.
and one thing that from it there, you had so many amazing experts and wisdom people that came forward, and several of them are, experts in their little genres,
Yes,
you know, and that expertise needs to be spread. So
exactly.
that's part of what I want to support people in doing is looking at these amazing wisdom keepers and how do we help move that to the places where people need it.
Yeah, be inspired and listen to yourself. This whole idea of when you were talking about going into that chapel, the idea of being in silence is not something that people are comfortable with.
Oh, it scares the crap out of most
Yeah,
people.
and we talk about meditation, and so many people say, "Oh, I meditate." And I think that the goal of that is to have like an empty mind. The goal of that is not to have an empty mind. The goal of that is to say, okay, that thought is here and just acknowledge it and it moves on, not to stay stuck in some place with
Right.
your
And is that
thoughts.
real for me? Does that really matter? It's like when, was it Mark Twain, most things we worry about never really happen or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah. So when it comes to loss, you're going to feel some pain. It's going to be difficult. There will be days that life is easy and days where you just want to curl up and not deal with anything. And that's okay, as long as it's not hurting you or hurting someone else. And you're not losing your job and you're not losing contact with reality or contact with other people. Honor the fact that this is something that will come in a wave and it will go away. And I think you've written something about the waves of grief and your path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for each of us to, this person I was working with yesterday, and supporting her in moving through some things. um uh, I said, what's a word that's important to you that helps you? She said resilience, and I said, well,
Yes.
that's cool. So I gave her an assignment, which she actually did today. I say take the word resilient and make it an acrostic. And if you don't know what an acrostic is, you take the word and you put it down the side of the page, and you write a word for each of the words.
Yes.
And it was so cool because, you could do that with any feeling, any, thing. And now I was like, okay, can you live that? You know what? I can. I have a better idea. We throw around words. I want to be resilient. All right, well, what does that mean?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like, how would
Well,
one do that? Exactly.
and she would not have thought to do that had you not directed her or
And
given her
that's why
that
we
tool.
need each other,
Right.
right? That's my expertise. She helps me in other ways, right? We mentor each other. And that's what I love about being a mentor. And I think that's what the series is in many ways, is mentorship.
Well, let's hope that that's true. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I was able to put this together. It was such an honor for me to be given this information and to put it out there for people. So let's move on to day number 11, where Dr. Lynn Karjala talks about prolonged grief. And prolonged grief is now considered as an actual, not necessarily disorder, but as a manageable condition in the DSM-5 and whatever rendition it happens to be now, which is the psychiatric way of diagnosing people. And Lynn talks about why it's important to have that as designated in that manual of conditions, is that insurance companies will pay for treatment for people that are in this prolonged grief and are not able to pull themselves out of this situation of grieving. I don't know if you have something to comment on about.
Yeah, I like how she said, and be careful not to get caught in the term prolonged grief.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? It's like what, it's all subjective. It's a continuum, really,
yes,
right? And then at time mark 17, she did an imagery that was beautiful.
yes, and so helpful, right?
So that's why I like to, so time mark, 17,
Yes.
go do that, and that might suck you in to listen to the rest of it.
I'm going to have to, hopefully one of these days, be able to put in time marks for a lot of the information that's been
Well,
presented.
I think that's part of you, and y'all can help us with that. And I will certainly be looking at that too.
Yeah.
But there is something, is like there's times where I just need to go to that imagery. I just need to go to that exercise. I just need
Yes.
to, you know, And who knows where this is going to, I'm certainly being led in my work. Patty's being led in hers, and there is a work we're doing together, and we're
Yes,
being guided in that. And for me, it's about how do I make these complicated things much simpler.
that's a gift. And not that easy to do. It's not that
You
simple.
make it easy to make it look easy, but it's not easy. No,
Yes,
but
I'm
that's
very
okay.
I have been technologically impaired for a while, and I've been trying to figure out how to work this thing, and people have been great to come back and pay attention to these videos. So next, let's look what's next. Day 12 came Amy Frost, and we talked about grief on the job. And to me, this was my introduction to Amy. She was so gracious to come and talk about, how she does this as not necessarily as just HR person, just asking questions to help people come to recognize what's going on in themselves and how it might be impacting what they're trying to do day to day.
And one of the things that I like to say is most people aren't going to counseling. Most people aren't going to go to church. Most people aren't going to go to a support group, but most people got to work.
Yes.
And so that's a great place to catch them. So I recommend watching it. And maybe, several people have told me like they never thought about the grief that happens at work.
Yes.
And they're really shifting how they look at their work and how they be with work and how they be with each other. So I want to encourage you, yeah, maybe, listen to yourself. And then if you feel called to share it with somebody else, and maybe just have a discussion. Like I said, I really like this idea of a podcast club or whatever you would call it, where you're like, okay, everybody watch this one and let's talk about it. Or maybe we watch it
Yes.
together and talk about it real time.
Well, we have this feature on YouTube, which is a preview and they're also live, you can do live videos. So if people have an interest in that, let us know in the comments. And what would you like to have a live video or a live presentation on through this channel? And I know that Amy and I would be very happy to do that with you. So next came Barbara Albano-Hickman, and she talked about grief and addiction, and you've quoted her a number of times.
I love her quote. Do you want me to say it? Do you
Go
want to say
ahead.
it?
Yeah.
So, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink, but you can make them thirsty.
Right.
I love that. I'm using that all the time.
Yes. Well, Barbara talks about how addiction can happen to anyone.
Yep.
She mentioned that multiple times throughout this video. Grief just adds another dimension to how people are coping. And so if you have someone who is struggling with an addiction, who you really know needs some extra attention because there's been another loss on top of what they're trying to deal with in life already, counseling, therapy, interventions may need to happen. And so I'm very grateful that Barbara took the time out to talk about this and gives people some understanding that, again, addiction happens in every family. No family I know is free of someone who's dealing with some kind of addiction, whether it is a substance or some other thing. And so, as we have said, grief is going to come.
And with there's the obvious addictions that we talk about, on a regular basis, but there's ones that people don't talk about. Shopping,
Correct.
certainly
Yes.
eating, work. I mean, I can work myself to death,
Yeah.
right? And then I get into this zone, and it's like, oh crap, other things. And that's what addiction is. You're so focused on this thing that everything else goes to pieces.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Well, I mean, there's a line in here that Barbara used that I don't know that people really pay attention to, but an addiction hijacks your brain.
Yes. That's right. I
And
love that.
it's an actual chemical thing that happens. I mean, an addiction hits areas of the brain that are uh, make it feel good,
Heck yeah.
right? And so we need to take charge of ourselves. And I think somewhere in here, I will somewhere along the line talk about the light and dark sides of these things, and that would be the archetypes. So later on, maybe we'll do something on grief and archetypes.
Yeah, I love
Like,
that.
okay. So moving on quickly again, we have Dr. Lucinda Grapenthin. Dr. Cindy is someone I know. She works a lot with children. And she talked about necessary losses that Judith Yost wrote about many years ago. And this is something to really pay attention to. We were talking about how a lot of what we talked about so far has been about death, but we have losses all day long, all life long, and they're important for our personal growth. We can't really move forward without having let go of something, and letting go of something.
Well, I love that, right? Get right. So like the trapeze, right?
Yes. Well, and it starts with childbirth. We're in this very comfortable
Exactly. I don't want to
environment.
go. This is great. I don't have to do anything really.
Right. And we come out screaming, hopefully, healthy babies come out screaming. And so there's this idea that, oh, I didn't want to leave that nice, warm, comfortable place. And I don't really want to go off to kindergarten. And I don't really think I want to leave my family to marry this person. And maybe we're in this marriage that isn't that great. And I don't really want to go through that, ending that, or, this, whatever that is. And so, or even just a positive change. I'm not so sure I want to move from one job to the other. I know where all the paper clips are in this job. I don't know where.
And I worked really hard to get this promotion. And it was like, gosh, darn it. Mm. My favorite, you work so hard to get the top of the ladder, and I was at the top of my ladder when I worked for the government, and I was like, I don't like this ladder. I'm at the top of it, but I don't even like, and how do I get down? Now I got to go to the bottom of another ladder?
Yes, exactly that. So, again, if any of this is resonating with you, if you've learned something that's helpful or it makes you think, let us know. Put it in the comments, and we can move on with more information about any one of these topics. We want to know what is useful for you, what has helped you, what has helped someone else that you've shared the information with.
Bring more wisdom keepers to us, and experts
Absolutely.
to us.
Come on, because there's plenty to learn. And we're here to do that. We're here to help you learn. And a lot of, use some evidence-based information, which brings us into like this next week. Let's do a quick share here so people can recognize the thumbnails here. So we have this week, Tony Falzano, who was talking about music, Storytellers back.
Oh my gosh.
We had a storyteller come in here and tell us about her caregiver grief, maintaining connections, Stephen McDonnell, and Mrs. America, and Nikki Wade. So that's week 7. So let's talk briefly about each of these videos so people can decide if that's something that they want to explore. So Tony Falzano, I found him online because he had written some articles about how music can help us when we're grieving. And I know that music is something that I often turn to in my life for all kinds of reasons. And what I hope that people take out of listening to that is that there are certain types of music that will be more calming for you. And as I was listening to what he was talking about, I was really thinking about frequencies.
Yeah.
Because,
well, that's what music is, isn't it?
yes,
It's language.
It's language and it's frequency. And when we want to be in a certain frequency of either joy or calmness, serenity, or even, elation, when maybe we're at a wedding and we want to have some fun, there are things that music can help us move through.
And take us right to, when you hear a song, you're back in high school, or you're in that, that special moment in your life where that song or that person.
And that happens, on the car radio. I
All
remember
the
I can
time. I
share.
don't know. I have crazy stuff happening, songs
Yes.
when I'm in a dark moment or a happy moment, that exact song, yeah, that nobody plays is like, how can this be happening?
That's
It's like,
well, and then there are songs that I had an experience. It feels like a mystical experience. I'll put it right out there. I was driving in my car and on the radio came Tony Bennett in a song that I have never heard him sing. And so the song was I Do Not Know a Day I Did Not Love You. It's from a Broadway play. I listened to it. I was so moved by it, but my parents were, who had passed many years ago, were in the back seat with me while I was listening to this music. I know they were present. I could feel their presence with me. And so we can use music to help us stay in touch with whatever we need it to help us stay in touch with, right? And it will bring us right back to the beginning, as Amy said. It can help calm us in the moment. It can help us just be more in touch with our spirituality, our physicality. It's a very useful tool. And I've often asked if people have put together a playlist.
I love that. And that's always a great question. I know for me, when I'm feeling like I need inspired, I am going to play This Girl Is on Fire.
There you go.
And I don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
And
I
and
am
if you
ready.
want to remember that person who you love so much, what are the songs that you listen to together? What are the songs that you that remind you of that person, even if you never listened to that with,
Exactly.
because there are songs that come on that are new songs every day. And I love to say that music has been a healing force for me in my life. I remember when I came here, I didn't know anyone. I was in a different planet, basically. I came from the north of the United States to the south of the United States. It
And
is
yeah,
very
different.
different in 1,000 different ways. And I went to senior center because I was technically over 65 and I was the youngest person in the room. And they were playing, we were singing. And one of the songs they played was Let Me Call You Sweetheart, which is something that I knew from childhood. My parents were Depression era folks. And those songs were songs that I heard them sing to me as a child. And I just cried throughout that entire song. I could not sing. My throat just closed. And I didn't go back to
Wow.
sing. So it's very powerful. And you need to, I would say, my advice to people is if you're listening to something like that, pay attention to the message that it's trying to give you. And what it is that's happening with you. And don't forget to share that with someone. Don't be in your pain by yourself. So to move on from there, we had storytellers on animals and grief.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'd love to hear your story about, how the neighborhood animals came to grieve.
Yes, when Spotty
My
died.
God.
They all
Wow.
came and they sat on the lawn and they had held a wake for my beloved pet.
Animals know. And I think that's for me and they grieve, which
They
I
do.
knew that, but most people think I'm crazy when I say that.
Well,
And
there's
I love that
scientific
you did.
research on that by a doctor out of Virginia, and I actually contacted her and asked if she wanted to be part of this. And that's the other thing is we can put out requests and feelers and things to people, and some will respond and some won't, and that's a life lesson, right? Have a list of 10 people that you know are going to be there for you in some way, especially when you're in trouble. And go down the list. That first person might be busy. That second person might have left town. That third person might be dealing with something of their own. That fourth person may be the one who can spend 15 minutes with you and help you pull yourself out of this. Do not give up.
Mm-mm.
But I think you'd enjoy listening to the story that one of the storytellers wrote about her own pet and how she dealt with him, the dog, as he was passing. It's very moving.
But and I want people there's so many pet lovers that don't feel like they're allowed to grieve because it's not a person.
And this is really crucial. People grieve their pets. People grieve losing a job. People grieve when their house burns down, when the forest is on fire, when the floods show up. Life events are powerful that can cause us to take stock of why we're alive. Grief is the thing that does that. And we need to pay attention. It's not just when someone dies, it's when some part of us has lost something significant to us. When that child excuse me, when that child wails because that toy is broken, that's a real grief.
Yeah, it is. And how great that if we're allowing them to have that grief, giving them tools to work through it, then you start using it with everything. So that's the thing I want to share with you. For me, having been in this arena for a long time, grief still happens, and
Yeah,
I have to make the choice. Am I, because if you're not going to deal with grief, don't have a plant, don't have an animal, right? Don't
exactly.
have friends, for God's sakes. Don't get married because you're gonna have it. You know what I mean? Don't have a job you love. Don't have a job you hate.
Well, the other side of loving is as loss and pain. And so, yeah, it's big. Uh, so let's move on again. A caregiver, sensitive caregiver tells her story. Well, Valerie Varan, this is probably one of the longer videos that I had because Valerie had a very difficult story to tell about when her mother became ill and she became a caregiver. And Valerie Varan is a very interesting woman. She calls herself a spiritual experiencer. So
Hmm.
from her early life, she's been very aware of some other things around her that many people are not aware of or don't pay attention to. And so I wanted to give her the time and space to talk about this. And caregivers often become ill because of
Yes, it
stress.
happens all the time. I'm
Yes.
supporting a couple right now.
And the illness is real, and it's something
Hmm.
that we need to pay attention to taking care of ourselves while we're grieving. This is it was very traumatic for her. Her mother had a number of incidents where she had to be revived, and this is a story. It's not that easy to listen to because it's so painful, and we don't want to have to listen to other people's pain sometimes. But it's really important to understand that if you are caregiving for someone, your grief may be multiplied. You're maybe dealing with a potential loss that's anticipatory grief. You may be dealing with the actual loss of someone. You may be dealing with your own sense of who am I in the world at this point? And because you lose a sense of who you are while you're taking care of something else. And that in itself is an important message for people to take home, I think, from this particular video.
And a workshop that I love to give. I don't give it very often, but because my family owns a flower shop for over 40 years, we used to have bridal things. It's like being me and we.
Yes.
And it's like, you're right, it's like, how do I maintain myself in relationship to other? It's challenging.
Yeah. So I think there's value in that video, and we'll again try to take from it what works for you and leave a comment. Let us know.
And if it's too hard, it's okay to stop.
It is okay. That's taking care of yourself.
It's really okay.
Taking care of yourself. It's definitely more than
You
okay.
still get an A because you attempted to watch.
You get an A in life, okay? If you
That's
need the
right.
grade.
Well, I'll send you a certificate if you want. So, like,
So next up is Basia Mosinski talks about maintaining a connection to our loved ones. And Basia,
oh, I love that so much.
yeah, what did you get from Basia's
Well, let me
conversation?
see. That you need to wait till you're ready,
Yes.
and they're ready. I mean, depending on how you look at it. There's a bunch of beliefs about that. Listen to yourself and what is right for you each step, which that kept coming up, right? And yeah, one of the things that came to me was, really walking with yourself gently through any loss.
Yeah.
And because it's easy, I should have this and I should have that. A good friend of mine, his mother suddenly had an illness and she passed pretty quickly. And she's in another state and he's doing this amazing work. And she was supposed to come and see it and and he had said that he was going to go see her. I saw him on a whatever Saturday and he was going to leave on Sunday and spend the week with her. But he got busy and he didn't go. And she passed that
Yeah.
Tuesday. And he is so beating himself up.
Well, let's honor the fact that people have a right to die when they're ready to go.
And they had a great relationship, and he had
Yeah.
seen her many times. And and so, all this is logical and it's all true. But, there's an emotional component that he has to come to grips with.
A lot of people will wait until their family is not in the
Oh
room.
my gosh, I've had that happen so many times. You're
Yeah.
staring at them,
Yeah.
and then you go for a cup of coffee, and they go then. It's like, what?
Yeah, and we have to, we have to let them go. We have to let them go at the moment, and and they're doing that for themselves, but they're also doing that for you. This is their relationship with their creator. This is where they're going. This is the next step on their journey, and so we need to honor that. They don't have to do it our way.
And I really want you to hear me that, okay, maybe you could have done something different, better, whatever. You didn't. It's like deal with the grief of that,
Right.
and then maybe you change who you are, what you do differently. But beating yourself up over what did or didn't happen is not going to serve you in the long
No,
run.
this is the reality, and we are dealers in reality around here, as best we can.
The reality we choose.
That's so now we're up to Stephen McDonald coming in on day 19, and he was talking about coping with a recent loss. And Stephen is a friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. And he didn't want to tell me what he wanted to talk about when I asked him if he had a topic on grief. So of course he came in
Ruh-roh.
grieving.
Did you have some grief about that?
Yeah, he came in grieving. And so he talks about losing the witness. He had a
Oh
friend.
my God. Yes.
Yeah, he lived for many, many years with this friend, his childhood friend who he lost. And so I know that that line affected you as well.
Well, I have to tell you, when that day that it posted, Ross and I were back east at a memorial for the family reverend that had been in the weddings and the burials and and so Ross listened with me, and he was like, "Oh my God, that's what's happening. I'm losing a witness to my whole life."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big thing. Um, and knowing that if you have that information, be armed. Notice that people in your life are here for a time. They're here, some are here for a season, as they say, some are here for the lifetime. And we're going to move in and out of life. I remember Roy from week one. One of the things he said to me many, many years ago when Diane first passed was life is a series of hellos and goodbyes.
Oh, I love that. Yes,
Yeah.
it's so true.
And he did remember saying that to me. But I remember that all these years. And I think that that's a perfect reminder that none of us is here permanently in this form.
Well, and one of the things that my husband Ross and I live by, and it served us well, is let's act like these are the good old days,
Perfect.
right?
So you'll notice now that Amy isn't with us for a minute. And the reason for that is that I realized after I took a look at this video that we had created that we had left out a video. So I went back and examined it, and I see that this particular video, which originally aired on the 19th of April, was called Loss of a Child, and it was Jenny Stanley, who is a warrior mom. The Warrior Moms was a group that came out of um, a number of women who came together who shared the same experience of having lost a child. And Jenny's precious Sydney died in a serious, very tragic death in the heated backseat of a car. And so Jenny became a warrior, in essence, to help prevent that from happening to any other person's child. And it's a very powerful video, about 22 minutes long. And I have to give thanks to Jenny Stanley for being so brave to share her story. And the reason that we did present it on the 19th, and I remember that so specifically, is that it would have been her beautiful little Sydney's birthday. So it's just another example of how someone took their serious loss and serious grief and turned it into something positive for the rest of the world, because Jenny became a warrior to help other people not suffer the same kind of loss of a child in an auto heat related death. So do take the time to review that. And if you find that moving and want to say something lovely to Jenny to help her throughout this time, I do encourage you to leave a comment and tell us what it is you learned from listening to her story. Okay, so next up is day 20 was Paige Ewing. Paige Ewing, for people who are not familiar with her name, is the current Mrs. America in the United States. And she very kindly came to the channel to talk about the fact that she's made grief a national platform.
Wonderful.
Yeah, which I hope helps people recognize what it is that's happening. She has her own I wouldn't call it, is it a business that I want to call it, or her own enterprise?
I'm a little unclear on that.
Yeah, I think it's a little enterprise that she said in this interview that she wanted to be like a girlfriend to people that are going through coaching is basically what she was talking. And so that is a model of how people can help one another through grief. And her effort is by being a grief coach. So that was a shorter video. That was about 17 minutes, and you'll see this beautiful lady.
Oh,
And
she's gorgeous. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and poor Patty
I have
Hodge.
some grief about that. Why don't I look like that? No,
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. So, so I'm grieving.
I'm grieving. Leave me alone.
Next up is Mikki Wade, who's the CEO of True Reality Incorporated. He discusses his pattern breaking method. And I
Oh
know
my
I
gosh.
met Mikki through Amy Frost. So talk to us about Mikki, since you know him. And
Mikki he lives what he teaches. He one of the things that well, goodness sake, so many great stories about Mikki, but he was in the Congo. That's where he was raised. His first language is French,
yes,
interestingly enough. And in his teens moved to LA. And I'll talk about, the grief of shifting. Then immediately, like within a year, his mother died. She was back in Africa. And so, and the changes in his own life and realizing I need to do something differently. And he and I have been, we call it spiritual gas stations for each other
uh-huh.
since 2009. And that's one thing, if you don't get anything else out of this, you got to have those kind of people in your life.
Yes,
We have a scheduled meeting every week, and we can text in that in between or even call, but just knowing I have that every week. And he is one of the things, he is a grief recovery program
yes.
person. And I have taken that program, not campaigning for anything, but let me tell you, I took it and it really helped me to understand some things. And I had some languaging and I had tools, and I've taken them and I use them in different ways. And then my husband, he didn't want to do it, but I said, this is how you trick a man. Back to they fix things. I said, I think it would help me a lot if you took it. It would help our marriage if you took
Oh,
it.
how sweet is that?
So, but I can't make him do the work. But I got him started, and
You
once
mean
he
you can lead a
started,
horse to water, but you can't lead.
exactly right, I got him there, and then now he's got to do the work. And the thing that's so great about that, and again, not particularly that program, although I love that program, it's been around 30, 40 years, and that we have common languaging. Like there's STURBs, short-term energy bursts. And what those are is like, sometimes I, take $20 and I go play video poker, and I get, and he knows where I am.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to be gone for this amount of time. I have this budget, and his thing is his games, football games, whatever.
Yes.
And then, but there's times I have to say, I feel like you're spending a little bit too much time doing this, and we're not really, you know, communicating or whatever. But we have the languaging.
So the reason that that Mikki got involved with this is he was really learning to address his own grief. He talked
Big
about,
time,
yeah, he
big
talked
time.
about being abused as a child. And
Mhm.
so his story is very painful, but he, again, like so many of the people in this program, they use their grief to propel forward to help other people.
Well, now I love the term post-traumatic growth.
Yes, there you go. It's so
He
important.
is that you look in the dictionary, his picture is there.
Okay,
If
give me
anybody knows what a dictionary is, I know. It's like,
nowadays it's very hard to find that. Does anyone know what a
you're right.
thesaurus
Let us
is?
know if you know what a dictionary.
Put that in the comics. What was the last time you looked
Exactly.
at a dictionary? Yes, here comes this is our week 4. And of course, there are a few more videos after this, which we'll also discuss because it was 30 days plus. But in week 4, we began with Amy and I came together again. Now, Amy was so good to me because I just met her for that first video.
Eh,
Um,
We've known each other many, many lifetimes, I'm sure.
so very quickly, let me tell you who these people are this week. Amy came back to talk about disenfranchised grief. Valerie Varan came back to talk about a tool. Jill Purce, who is a very interesting woman, talked about healing transgenerational trauma. Mel Erickson gave us some amazing tools for working with children who are grieving. We had a talk here with a psychologist about food, weight, and grief. Greer, I can't think, Greer Raggio is her name. Dawson Church came on day 27 to talk about genes and how they affect our health. And then Masey Kaplan from an interesting organization, and we'll get to her.
Love this
Wasn't that
organization
great? So
so
this
much.
was a great group this time, this week. And we'll start with how we got to talk about disenfranchised grief, Miss Amy and I.
Well, the thing that I loved about this one, again, here's the backstory.
Yeah.
It's like, right, that we were talking that morning and you said, I have this idea. And I said, well, I have a bunch of meetings. How about that was at 10 in the morning. And then 3 o'clock, we ended up talking.
Yes.
And of course, all kinds of magic happened around this topic. And we were talking about the grief from, being bullied by mean girls, by clueless boys. And I really hadn't thought of that, but then I had a few hours, it was just kind of, oh, that's interesting, that's interesting. And it was really an amazing conversation. And I have shared it with a lot of my female friends. And let me tell you, a lot of them have really had major ahas about how it affects them even today.
Amazing. Well, that was serendipitous for sure. Yeah, it was a rough morning for me. I had had a conversation with someone that dragged me right back into my childhood insecurities. And I just needed to talk with someone that I trusted, and Amy came to mind. And so this was just a great conversation that we had. I do, if you are a woman, I encourage you to take a look at this and identify some areas of grief that you may not have been identified before. And if you are a man and you want to know more about how women are affected by your behaviors towards them, or your daughters, or your
Oh,
nieces, or your coworkers,
or your mom.
or your mom, if you're someone that really wants to just have a little more information about the hearts and minds of people that may be carrying some form of grief that you never thought about before.
Well, I want to quote a good friend of mine, from this, and she says, "Moms, and I'm going to say anyone, say terrible things when they are not
Oh, that was
well,
me.
but I don't have to let those terrible words and actions or non-actions hold my self-love hostage anymore."
Amen.
I gotta pick that up. Like, yes, I don't have a mic, otherwise I would have dropped it. Yes, and that was Patty. She said that. But it's like, wow. And I have the very similar issues that you have that I had with my mom.
Yes.
And, you're always waiting for this mom that people told me I was supposed to have to appear. She never did.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I was
you
waiting.
and you also talked about like being the new kid all the time in the
Oh my
family
goodness,
because of being
yes.
a military girl, so a military family. Yeah, these are things that people don't spend a whole lot. I'll have to say this. People spend a lot of time talking about it in therapy. And they don't realize that this is really the root of it.
Yeah.
That so many women come in with low self-esteem or with this idea that they can't do this thing or whatever this is. And what is the root of that? These griefs happen at such an early age. If they're not dealt with properly, then, you carry that sense with you. And it's not just girls. But as I said to Dr. Bob Baugher in another video here that he did with us, guys have to learn how to become more emotionally intelligent in some ways. The EQ needs to
And,
increase.
and there's lots of ways to do that. There's lots of education now. But don't you don't have to do it. It was a really good line in a movie I watched last night. He said this fella he moved from one country to another to be with this woman, and he said, "I did not move here for you. I moved here for us."
Okay.
It's like, wow.
We're taking other people into account, aren't we? Yes. Good stuff. I hope you'll watch and you'll comment. So again, now day 23, Valerie Varan came back and she gave us this tool called an emotional constellation. And I think that this was very valuable. Again, this is just a little bit longer than most videos that we did.
Well, and I personally said I run this women's group every month, and I took that and I taught them that and about what does the constellation look like when you feel unsafe.
Yes.
And then we did some breathing and some having. Now, what does the constellation look like when you feel safe? I do this, I'm with these people, yeah. And so now you're like, oh, so now I know when I feel unsafe and when I feel safe, and I have agency in my life.
So it's valuable. I would urge people to pay attention to this tool and practice it and try to learn it with someone else. If you're not catching it on it right away, ask someone else to sit with you and help you work through. It's very valuable. Thank you, Valerie. So day 24, Jill Purce came. Jill was describing her work with transgenerational trauma and grief. She's such an interesting woman. I had gone to her website and there was hundreds of things that she has done in her life. She is the wife of Rupert Sheldrake, who is a well-known scientist or not necessarily mainstream scientist, but he's a fascinating guy. And Jill uses her voice, and she runs these workshops and other amazing things overseas in England. So what did you take from Jill's take on this transgenerational trauma?
It's so funny. Honestly, I can't really remember specifically with her.
Yeah.
But I have really, since then, it's an interesting. So since then,
Yes.
I've really been looking at, how is my lineage affecting me?
Yeah, it's important.
And one of the things that I think you know about me, my grandmother's sister, my great aunt, Laura Bolton, was the mother of ethnomusicology. And so I have all these, instruments all over my house. I don't play any of them, but I have them. And so, in the music one too. And then that, I'm like, okay, maybe there's something with my lineage that I need to look at. How do I use these instruments and music more in the work that I'm doing? And I used to,
Yes.
I haven't for many years. And I'm like, okay, so bringing my, lineage to the table with me.
This is the message that I hope we get out there, is that we did not learn to grieve just coming out of the womb. We carried all of the ancestors that came with us, all of their experiences, and some of those were worked out and some of them were not, and some of them are repeated generation after generation.
Oh my God. So yesterday, whether this stays in here or not, a good friend of mine and I were talking that I had no idea about this, that his wife, her mother was pregnant with her when she escaped a country. And the effect that she doesn't, that this woman doesn't even realize that he does, that
Yes.
she doesn't. So it was like, this, all the emotions of escaping and creating a new life, and she wasn't even born yet.
Well, this is often talked about in energy work, right? Especially in TAT that I'm familiar with. I was raised in a certain religion, and I was raised to think a particular way, and we all have that. We're all conditioned in particular ways. And one of the things that I learned to do to help my family, pray for my family, to help them move out of whatever historically we were not even aware of, because I'm also my family's historian. I do genealogy as a hobby, and so I've come across newspaper clippings about events that had happened that were like not talked about ever, and so some of that Jill helped me identify some of that as well. Like how she deals with that is through this energetic way of using her voice and drumming and all these other things. And how I learned to deal with that was through another book by Kenneth McCall, which was Healing Your Family Tree, in which
Oh, yeah.
he's a missionary and he
Beautiful.
uses Mass and the Eucharist for Catholics and to help heal that in generations. So if you have some inkling that something is repeating through generations in your family, and there's grief attached to that needs to be addressed. This may just help open up that conversation for you.
Yeah, and again, we can have more conversations about this. And again, we're being guided. John Bradshaw,
Yes,
The Family Secrets. That was
yes,
one of our textbooks.
yes.
Yeah, and I got to experience him in person. How cool! In a
He is an
small group.
amazing man. He did such wonderful work for people, and I don't think people even know his name at this point. This was really,
No, again, and in doing it, literally, it was homework.
yes.
Did the workshop, did the the book, but it was like things I'm like, oh my gosh,
It's like healing
that's
shame.
why I have this. This is why my mother has this. This is why, it
Yes,
not that it changed how some things were, but it made me change who I was and what
right.
I was choosing to put in my life and not put in my life.
Yes. So I again, if anything in this video interests you, let us know. Day 25 was Mel Erickson, who was a really very lovely woman who talked about her many, many years of working with children in grief. And she did this through a faith-based organization, faith-based, yeah, through, I guess, her church. And so I know that this was really important to you too, because she offered these tools, this whole array of tools to people. And if they watch the video and they said, saw this on Patty Hodge's Dr. Nurses Rock, she was going to send it to people for free.
Yeah,
So,
and yes, and so you could go look at that. Yes, and I did buy the book.
yes,
And and I'm going to say this, I think you might have said this, and otherwise are going to say this. When I'm working with people, usually it's where they're wounded at, right? So it's
yes,
right, it's not whatever they look like, they're 40, but they're really 8 or 5 or whatever. And so a lot of the tools that she has are for children, but you can adapt them for adults.
yes, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of those things in there. I said, well, that would really help everybody. And so I would say if you know a child that's grieving, or you have someone in the family, or you are a community worker and you're working with children, this is really such a great resource.
Well, and I think, I know my dad died when I was 27, and I have, 4 younger sisters. And they did the best they could. But it was like, the youngest was not allowed to go to the funeral. They didn't want
Yes,
her to be upset. And then it was like, okay, I get that, but there's things going on for her that she doesn't even realize.
that's right.
And kids are sharper than you think. Right? They're wiser than you think.
Just remember when you were a kid and you just knew what was going on. I
It's
mean,
like, can somebody just talk to me?
exactly. And then there's their grief attached to that. They're not only losing someone important to them, they can't say goodbye properly, but then they're losing the people that are still around because they don't have the contact with them,
Oh, that's a really good point.
right?
That's true.
Their
Yeah.
parent or the other parent is lost in their own grief, and so the child is really really floundering possibly, and so someone needs to be there for them.
So, this great tool. You don't have to figure it out. She has all these great tools.
She has amazing tools, and they're all in the links when you go to that particular video. On day 26, Greer Raggio, a PhD, came and talked about food and weight and grief and how they fit together. Greer wrote an article that I found online and asked her to come and talk about it. Some of the takeaways from this is that people will probably not eat the way they used to before they were grieving in a serious way. They may start grazing. They may avoid food altogether. They may be overeating. Um, your
Well,
weight
and
may
for
change.
me, through anorexia, through,
Yes.
yeah, because
Weight
I
may
could,
change. Weight may change because your metabolism is slowing down because it's protecting you because of the grief that you're in. And so, I know many, many people, especially women, because women tend to be the larger number of people that come into therapy themselves. Um, they'll come in, they say, I put on 40 pounds and, and it's painful to have to deal with the change in the body because that's another grief, but
and
also
how people look at you. Oh my
and how you're
goodness.
received and all that. They make judgments about your body size and the way that you look. So I think the bottom line here is let it be. Let it be. This is a way that they're coping. Food may be the way that they're coping at this moment. Um, it will pass unless we are talking about some kind of prolonged grief situation.
Exactly. And then you make it a habit or an addiction or whatever. Yeah.
And then you seek help, proper help.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Day
Well,
20.
number one, I just want to say what for me and so many other people, it really comes down to starting to listen to your body and what it needs.
Yes.
But we short
Body
circuit
talks to
that.
us all day long.
Yeah. Really.
All day long. And I think Dr. Maria talked a little bit
Yeah,
about
she's
in
really
the
good at that.
end. Yes. So we're almost there. We're in
On a downhill slide in a good way.
and we're in the end stretch here, whatever that is called. Day 27, Dawson Church came and talked about how genes are affected, how emotions affect our genes and our health. And I just love that conversation with Dawson. He's such a sweet, open man who helps so many people on a daily basis. And he talked about his own losses. He lost his home in a fire. He lost his son. And we know that genetically things can change. If you've never heard this terminology, it's epigenetics. Gene expression is what you see when you look at a person. You know, that person has blue eyes and blonde hair and has, those are genetic expressions of things. And there's research out there that talks about how food can change our genetic expression and how the environment can change our genetic expression, and illnesses happen because of changes in genes. So this is an important conversation. It's from someone who I trust very much, who has written the book on the genie in your genes. He's written a number of books, but it's so important. And I just would say to people, it's easy to digest, it's easy to listen to, and it's full of information that really can help you move forward, I think.
And just really for me, I know him personally, and one of the things that I love most is he lives this. He
Yes.
walks his talk, and that's really important. And he has so many great books and programs. When I say just kind of ferret around, just kind of and see, yeah, see what part if you resonate towards it. And I do trust him.
Yes. So that was day 27. Day 28, we had Loose Ends with Masey Kaplan. And this organization was so interesting to me. I was really looking for this because I am a crafter myself. I crochet and it helps me. It helped me with my grief. And I was looking for a way to incorporate that into this 30 days. And I came across this website where they complete unfinished handiwork
I love this so
of
much.
people. And it doesn't have to be of someone who has died, who's left it behind. It could be anything that they just couldn't complete because
And they
of
call them finishers.
finishers. They have over 30,000 of finishers in the world, and maybe more since this has happened. And it's a free service. So Masey, very sweet, talks about how every attic, every home has something that did not get completed that you've hung on to because you loved that person. They were a knitter or and now they're branching out into other things too. It's not just
Well, what
textile.
I was so that yeah, well, the correct requests have moved into finishing songs and stories and woodworking.
Yes, amazing stuff. So
So
again,
if you are a potential finisher, you definitely want to watch it. If you have something that you had a family member start that they didn't finish that you would like to have finished, yeah, go watch it. And one of the things I want to encourage, and it's on my list of things to do, is I would love to start circles in communities of finishers supporting each other.
that's a great idea. I mean, we have them all over the place. They're in libraries finishing. They're making crochet hats for people and, veterans. They're
And a
making,
lot of them are just doing it by themselves. Wouldn't it be
yes,
more fun to do it together?
come together, come together, like the Beatles said.
Come together right now and finish that piece of art.
Okay, so we're up to the last 2 days. I want to just share the last 2 days so people can
Well, the
recognize
official last 2 days,
the
but okay.
official, yes, because we did have more afterwards, and that'll be another video. But we're sharing this last 2 days here, which is unresolved grief takes a toll. And this is again with Dr. Bob Baugher and Dr. Maria Lamardo, Your Body and Grief. So these are the last two ones down here, and I hope that you'll take a look at those. And
And then I don't know what you call it. For me, it's 31, but it is, with Sophie Wade.
Sophie Wade. And then I
and right, and her talking about young adults and creating a space for grief.
yes, and then you and I and Michael Thrower had a video as well. So and I had someone who is well known for cluttering,
Clutter, which
decluttering.
yeah, it's huge. Just like real quickly with the one that the three of us did, you, Michael, and I, that the healthcare workers, firefighters, police, veterans, and people who are being of service, the grief that they're just doing, they're making it happen, they're doing. It's like, whoop, there's grief there. And
Yes,
we talked a little bit about suicide.
and we'll put a plug in here for your upcoming conference in the end of the year in November. And if people are interested in that, how they can come to
And,
your
and it's really about having these conversations, really open, kind, loving conversations.
yes. So the last two in April, which is what this video is about, we will do our best to put this in bite-sized pieces for you, so this is not so hard for you to munching.
Munching that.
That's
Yeah.
another endeavor that our friend Amy is involved in. So Bob Baugher, this was an interesting video. I really love conversations with him. He talked about griefism.
I loved it so much.
Yeah, yeah. And
And is that biased? You should be over this. What are you talking about? Why are you so sad? That happened a year ago or
yeah.
5 minutes ago or whatever.
Well, grief takes a toll, and we talked about what does that mean? And in particular, you may see someone who's very angry. We talked about a video that I had seen and linked in there, which is about road rage and how they called it healthy road rage because these men came together to support one another. There's a very important video, I think, not mine, and I credited it in there in the comments. But again, Bob Baugher talks about how men maybe need some help in finding their emotions, naming their emotions, talking about what's going on. And I think this too is
Well,
valuable.
re-identifying vulnerability is strength.
Yes. Yeah. And day 30, Dr. Maria Limardo, who has like a million credentials, and I spent way too much time looking at her credentials, but she she's a medical doctor. She has all of these other interests, and she's a researcher, and she's an energy worker. And I can't even tell you what particular one because she knows so many of ways to address people's issues. But we talked about
And she did an exercise for us,
yeah,
right? And I forgot to put the time mark, so I'm gonna have to go back and look at whatever
it's
that
towards the
time
end
mark
of the
was.
video.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, when I finally learn how to do that properly, I will do that. Or in each individual video. I may have to hire someone to help me do that. But Maria Limardo, it's worth watching that for that particular healing piece in the end. And I've asked Maria to come back because I think that she was a very important person during this series. And
Well, one thing that I wanted to throw out, whether this ends up on this video or not, yeah, she walks her talk. It's
yes,
all about how do we take, these wonderful tools and apply them as fast as possible.
yes,
Her lineage is from Venezuela.
yes,
And when the earthquake happened, she's part of our emotional first aid humanitarian committee that we've been doing for many, many years. She immediately started doing training sessions for people in Venezuela, dealing with the grief and now what? How do I mean, right in the middle of it. And
yes,
so now she's training a group of people in Venezuela to work with people in Venezuela.
yeah. So the blessing for me was all of these amazing people that stepped up to be part of this, seeing it as something valuable to honor a person who's passed, someone they did not know, who they wanted to help other people. And it was such a blessing to me, and I'm hoping that it will be to anyone who watches any one of these videos. And again, if any one of them helps you, put it in the comments. Which one was it? What was it in that video that helped you? What was it that you decided to do because you watched that video? Did you share it with someone, and how did it help them? So I'm just asking, please help this channel to grow, help this channel to move forward. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Send a video over to someone. If they like it, tell them to subscribe, because we are trying to do what you tell us helps you. I can't guess I want to be of service to you. And the only way I can do that is if you let me know what it is that helps you. So I'm grateful to Miss Amy Frost for being here. As always, I'm sending love to you from long distance and breathing.
Breathing, always breathing. Well, you're breathing anyway. You might
That's
as well do it.
do it with intention.
Do it with intention. It's such an honor to be here, and this is a calling for us.
Yes.
This is a calling for us.
And I'm grateful for you. So thank you for being here. And we'll say
My honor.
bye for
Totally,
now.
totally.